I read the King James Version. It reads as follows. But now, O Lord, thou art our Father, and we are the clay, and thou art our potter, and we are the work of thy hand. As I read this, I was struck by its simple words, but it also reflected my thoughts concerning Phil. In a few weeks, he and I had become very close because both of us had a pretty quick wit and could be sarcastic at times. But Phil's efforts on this earth for a short time while we worked together, and yes, we will continue to work on these projects, was much like a potter. Pottery making is a quite sort of a vocation, as we all know. Not much noise or banging about or not much bragging, but we think of solitude and quietness when we think of what a potter does when he does his duty. Phil, in a quiet way, made things happen. He used neither clay nor mortar nor guns in his advancement of the freedom of the Iraqi people. He used the written word. It's fitting for a contracting officer that Phil crafted statements of work, contract instruments, and DD forms to accomplish history-making tasks. For without those documents, we couldn't do what we've done in the past few weeks. His pen created a secure complex from which the Iraqi judiciary can advance and protect the freedoms of the Iraqi people by the fair application of the laws to all people regardless of their religious belief or their religious sect. The great Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Chief Justice John Marshall, once said, "There's no greater evil can be visited upon a free people than that of a weak, independent judiciary." Phil's work is to be remembered as a vital step in the advancement of a free and independent judiciary in Iraq, and thus for the freedom of the Iraqi people. As Phil's nature was, Phil also shaped the lives of all those that he came in contact with on a daily basis. He did this quietly as well. He did it with a quick wit and a smile, as you saw in the presentation. And all the time I knew him, I never saw him with a frown or a scowl or an angry word. But his outlook on life was reflected in his face. Never anything but cheerfulness and happiness and fullness of life. Yes, I will long remember this young man. It is my hope that even though most Iraqis will never know his name nor know of his deeds, that when they appear in front of their courts, that the courts will render justice to all regardless of their religious beliefs or sect, and that it be fair and impartial justice. I feel that no greater tribute or honor could be paid to this young man if in fact this becomes the way of a life and the way of the judiciary in the Iraqi courts, that they perform their duties fair and impartial. And now that I ask all of us that we recommit ourselves to this task and this purpose and ensure for his sake and for ours that we do not fail him or the Iraqi people in this advancement in their freedom. And again, I want to thank all of you for the honor of being here today.
Now if you please join me and stand to sing the Navy hymn, which is inserted in your program. Thank you.
Way, who midst the mighty ocean deep be seated. Part of my experience this week, after we received the news, part of it was to meet with some of the close friends of Phil. I had the opportunity, as General Scott said, to meet with his JCCI teammates and his men-sticky comrades. Went over to Fob Shield on Sunday and met with Charlie and Earl and some of the folks down there that were with Phil when he died. But another personal blessing I've received from this is my opportunity to dialogue with Phil's wife. I did not know Cheryl before this happened, but I feel like I know her now. We've communicated quite a few times in the last few days, and I want to read a letter from her. This is her words to us on this day. Chaplain Jenkins, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of the memorial service for Phil today. I'm so touched that you asked. I've been spending the better part of this week getting the preparations complete in order to send Phil off with the recognition he deserves. I've had many small moments to reflect on how we got to today. Ironically, I have no hatred for the persons responsible, just sadness. I feel a profound sadness that they did not get to know a great person who was trying to make the world, and more importantly, their world, a better place. Phil was especially proud of this final project he was working on. And on the day of his death, he had forwarded 2 emails to me. One, which was our personal daily correspondence, and the second was work-related, explaining in more wife-friendly detail his current mission and the importance of it. I thank God every day that I received both of those emails. My hope is that the legal foundation he was trying to make a reality will be used to find those responsible for his death. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was not home when Phil died and was unaware of the great effort that the U.S. Navy was undertaking to try to find me immediately. Due to it being the Easter holiday, I was down with friends in Virginia in a remote location. When my cell phone went off, my oldest daughter answered it and said it was someone from the Navy. My blood went cold when I realized that this could be the call. I was blessed that the chaplain on the line was with friends of mine in Mechanicsburg, and they knew that I would be able to handle the news and would want to know immediately. There were 4 close families together that day, and I was in a room surrounded by so much love and caring for me and the children. They mourned the loss of a friend, while I mourned for a father and beloved husband. The next day, we immediately departed back to our Pennsylvania home. Phil's greatest fear was that if anything ever happened, I and the children might be alone. God granted Phil's final wish that day. I have talked to several of you from Baghdad via email or phone. One general concern that I've received from some is that I'm sensing your tremendous burden of responsibility you feel regarding his death. I'm releasing you from that burden. It isn't yours to carry. Phil and I both went into this assignment with our eyes wide open. We spent many long, agonizing hours discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly realities of this war. Twice he had volunteered for IA assignments, but timing within the command here wasn't meshing. Phil was a frontline man and felt that he had the right skills to make a difference. In addition, he knew as well as I did that he would become a victim of his success and someday be given opportunities for some challenging projects. Hence, Phil's most recent volunteering for the Rule of Law Green Zone Project. About 2 weeks ago, when the call went out needing an 04-05 contracting officer, Phil approached me about his desire to volunteer. As like any wife, I was afraid that my worst fears would be realized. We discussed what he wanted to do and that he really needed to do this project. He felt it would be one more effort in rebuilding the infrastructure of Iraq. He truly believed that although Iraq had a rough road ahead, this would be one more brick in the wall towards that endeavor. And she put this in all caps. Please understand that Phil and I both made this decision together and realized the dangers that were involved. I loved my husband too much to hold him back from fulfilling his dreams. He felt that he was making a difference, even when he would be frustrated with setbacks, politics, and ignorance by religious zealots or terrorists. Phil realized that a change in a culture that has been doing things this way for hundreds of years was not going to happen overnight. I have talked about Phil, the naval officer. Now I would like to talk about the Phil who was my husband for 16 years and the father of Olivia, Seth, and Lauren. Phil loved his family so very much. I knew what I had. He was my champion and my best friend. Phil and I would constantly marvel about how great our life was. And every now and then, one of us would comment about what would be the proverbial disaster that would challenge us. I now know that answer. Phil's greatest pride and love was his 3 children. The best way to demonstrate this is his final days prior to deploying. As like most kids, Olivia and Seth would always have, quote, one-off requests about things they wanted to do. Olivia wanted to horseback ride. Seth was passionate about being a car designer. Lauren, who is 4, just wanted to play. Phil worked with both principals at the kids' schools to arrange for a day to spend with Dad. He worked hard to create what would be a special day that was unique to each of them. On Olivia's day, she was surprised with her favorite breakfast and then went to horseback riding lessons. Later for lunch, they went to the local Italian eatery where he made her order their lunch in Italian. He was so proud of her that day. On Seth's special day, he arranged for them to both do man things. That's in quotes. Seth was very puffed up when he left the house that day. The highlight was when Phil took Seth to a local high-end car dealership where he had arranged to test drive a convertible sports car. Lauren spent 3 days at home with Phil, working in the yard, getting filthy and loving every minute. Those moments of time will carry them forever. Phil died with his boots on. He held to his core 3 major truths throughout his life that were important to him. First was God, second was his family, and third his dedication to his job in the Navy, representing his country. His most difficult struggles were when the job interfered with the other 2. I remember the few times he would bring the laptop into the office, and I could see through the webcam the pictures of us and the kids on the wall. He was so proud. He had such wonderful and kind words for those he worked with. Often he would ask me, "Hey, babe, could you find a few moments to get a few things?" And those things would be favorite snacks of his crew. Phil was always thinking of others. On Monday, April 16th, we will be having Mass and visitation here in Pennsylvania. The following day, he will be buried in Arlington with full military honors. 2 of Phil's friends are Navy chaplains, and they will be conducting his funeral Mass. I am so blessed that it has worked out. Every commanding officer that Phil has ever worked with has emailed me personally and will be attending one or both events. Phil would be humbled by their efforts. Family and friends are coming from all over the U.S. and 3 countries. He will be sent off in great tribute as a father, friend, husband, and sailor. I will end with a quote that Phil's former captain, David Volanino, wrote to me the day after his death. It captures Phil so well. Quote, "I will remember Phil as a leader on the ship, a leader within his community, a leader in his church, a devoted and loving husband, a strong and righteous father, and beloved, cherished, and deeply missed shipmate." The words of Cheryl Murphy-Sweet. As part of my remarks, I want to read my reply to her. Cheryl, I received the letter you sent for us to read at the memorial service. It will be an honor to read it on your behalf. I've been in this profession a long time and have conducted untold memorial services, including many at the Pentagon after 9/11. However, your heartfelt words have touched me in a way that I cannot describe. Your words painted a picture of Phil that beautifully stated for us what we had already seen. He was a very unique individual through whom God touched others. We saw the Phil you described, a man who stepped up and who, like Isaiah, declared, "Here am I, use me." Phil died as an agent of change. He became one of the foundation stones for a new Iraq. He died a true American hero. It is amazing, though our military is stretched so thin, nonetheless, great men and women continue to volunteer for extra duty, who find ways to become engaged in transforming their world. Phil obviously had an incredible insight and understanding of what his priorities should be. His devotion to God, family, and country were evident. It occurred to me years ago that the people who know us best are our family and our work associates. If those individuals can attest to our character and define us as one with a good heart, then we have truly run the race as we should. I have heard through you that the family declares him as such, and I can affirm that his comrades and co-workers here agree. Now I am convinced that Phil has now heard his God join that chorus with the words, "Well done, you good and faithful servant." God bless you, Cheryl, Seth, Olivia, and Lauren. I sent that on your behalf as well as mine. In Isaiah, as I've just quoted, in the 6th chapter, we read about Isaiah having this vision as he stood before God. And the word came to Isaiah about who will go and who can I send. And first of all, Isaiah saw his inadequacies, and he said, "I am unworthy. I'm a man with unclean lips. Certainly it's not me." But it says that Isaiah's lips were touched, and the coal that burned out the dross in his life caused Isaiah to realize that he could be a servant. He could make a difference. And so after seeing the vision of what could be and the vision of how he could help make a difference, he stepped up and he said, "Here am I. Send me." Phil Murphy-Sweet was a man like that. He could have stayed where he was serving at Mechanicsburg, but he volunteered. And he basically, like Isaiah, said, "Whoa, wait a minute. There are challenges going on in the world. Iraq needs a man like me. I believe I can bring something to the table." And he said, "Here I am, send me." And he came, and he served, and he died. He believed in what he was doing. His life and his death gives hope, I believe, to the dream of a better Iraq. Because if people like Phil Murphy-Sweet, the best that we can send over here, are stepping up and volunteering and say, "Let me go," I believe that portends hope for a better Iraq. And I believe it reflects well on the kind of people that America is sending out to serve in the military. General Dempsey spoke recently at the MOD Civil Service Staff Development Center groundbreaking, where they laid a cornerstone. Sir, I've quoted you twice on this. That spoke to me. He said, "We're very proud to contribute to anything dealing with the training of Iraqis. We do a great deal of work constructing buildings and providing equipment. They grow old and eventually they wear out. But educating and helping them become better citizens of a free Iraq is what will cause this country to endure." And Phil was building people